Welcome to the Siljander Podcast, where you will find actionable tips, tricks, and strategies for the millennials. In this show, we will dive into content that will teach you how to live with more ease, confidence, and authenticity. Here we will start with a foundation of compassion for ourselves, and then spread that compassion to others. We believe that this chain of acceptance and fortitude can radically change our families, communities, and beyond. And I am your host, Laura Siljander, yoga teacher, mental health coach, outdoor enthusiast, and lover of red wine. So grab your headphones and get ready to learn, grow, and to be inspired to live a life filled with intention and wellness. If you like the show, follow me on Instagram at practice_compassion, or check out my website, laurasiljander.com. I am so glad you are here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, my compassionate beings. Thank you so much for joining me and being here and taking time out of your day to better yourself in a way. I would like to add a little side note. I had a conversation with someone and it was a male, and he says, I listen to your podcast and you usually are geared towards female millennials. I go, yeah, that's my avatar. He goes, well, I'm listening too. So all of you fellas out there, for all of you non-millennials out there, you are welcome and thank you so much for joining. So in the Siljander podcast, we are in the middle of the Spiritual Jelly series, but I was very, very inspired by a topic that we're going to talk about today. So I hope it's okay that we take a break from the Spiritual Jelly series and we'll continue it in the future. And I hate to be not consistent with you all, but when the fire is lit and you just feel inspired, I really want to share that with you. So if I'm feeling kind of okay about one topic and stoked about another, I feel like you deserve the stokedness, not the, oh, well, this is fine. So I hope that's okay. Again, I don't like to be inconsistent with you, but I really wanted to share this topic. And I believe that you could probably seek some truth and unveil some of your answers for yourself. I've been on the road. We have been on the road, my wife and I, and an old dog have been on the road for about 2 weeks now. And we're on the road for about a month and a half. Right now, we are hunkered down in Colorado, and we are visiting family in Meeker, Colorado, a tiny, tiny little town. We're going to make our way over to Ouray and Telluride to do some mountain biking and some hot springs. And then we will head over to my beloved Moab. So who knows what insight will come from Moab. You know, I have talked about this place a lot, Moab, Utah. So who knows what will come out of that. Pretty stoked and excited. We are traveling in our 16-foot Scamp. There are pictures on my Instagram of this. It's kind of like van life. It's very small space living, but man, it's a good time. That's enough about me. So I want to start with a question. Can we love, or even on a lesser scale, care about a person from afar? Can we have a relationship with someone who has or continues to hurt us? Can we hold this person accountable for the pain that they cause, yet still hold space to love them? As you evolve and grow, you may start to become keenly aware that some people are just bad for us. I don't mean to sound like us enlightened beings outgrow people who are lesser. That's not what I'm saying. But I do believe that as we grow, we may outgrow some people. We may become keenly aware that we feel like crap around someone. Or maybe when we're hanging out with someone, we gossip more. Or the person we're around is really negative, and then we go down that road of negativity. Or maybe that person cuts us down. When you get a taste of a fulfilling, healthy relationship, those that leave you feeling grateful and on fire and understood, it's hard to spend time and go back with the other people who don't make you feel that way. So what do you do? Have you been in this situation? Odds are if I am, you are too. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or even if you listen to the intro, you know that compassion, the practice of compassion, is the foundation of this show. As the intro says, I believe that compassion is the radical notion of our time and could change our families and communities for the better. This notion or idea of compassion was researched by one of my favorite researchers, Brené Brown. I love to get kind of ooey gooey emotional on you, but I also like to bring in the research. So it's not just opinion, that there's actually some scientific basis behind the message of this podcast. So Brene Brown interviewed people for about 8 years until her and her team selected the most compassionate interviews they had from the people like monks to see what they had in common, if there were any patterns. And you're like, wait, hold up. This isn't numbers and research. There's something in research called quantitative and qualitative studies. Qualitative studies are interview-based studies. So if you are interested in that, it's a quick Google search. You can find the difference. Quantitative is more numbers-driven. Qualitative is longer form research with interviews where you pick up on patterns and themes. Okay, let's go back. So odds are, if you read the title of this episode, you know that the pattern they all had in common were that they had very strict, uncompromising boundaries. They all had boundaries regarding what is acceptable and okay to them, and more importantly, what was not okay and what doesn't fly. Boundaries are tough and can be uncomfortable, but also freeing at the same time. Let me explain a little bit more. I think it could be the answer to those who are struggling to hold compassion for someone who, to put it frankly, just sucks sometimes. I mean, seriously, it's really hard to like, to love, and to be around someone who doesn't fill you up, that makes you feel misunderstood, confused, hurt, and sad. How do you bring compassion for them if you have to be around them, if they're a coworker or a family member or fill in your blank? It's really tough to cultivate compassion and love for them. It's almost as if we come up with this narrative, this story, this law that we come up with that says things like, hey, I'm going to switch my boundaries around. I'm going to violate my boundaries because I don't want to cause drama. Or this person will never change. Or this person is a family member. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to appease them and compromise my boundaries and my comfort zone just to be around them. Odds are you have a person in your life who, to say the least, is challenging. You may be angry with them, but to suppress it when they are around because you don't want to rock the boat, perhaps you are judging them, or again, fill in your blank for being around these really challenging people. The thing we don't tell ourselves is that we actually have a choice here. Now, the choices may mean that you're going to have to make some tough decisions, but let's at least explore some of those choices. The first one is pretty obvious. You can ask or have a conversation with the person about your discomfort. The most obvious, right? Another odd is you may have already tried this, and typically what could happen is a person gets defensive and doesn't change, or you're lucky and they do change. Another option is to keep doing what you're doing and suppressing it and suppressing your anger and getting mad and hurt, or you can maybe set some boundaries with that person. You can think about what boundaries do you need to set in place to feel like you are standing in your truth and in your integrity. Here's the thing. You must be ready to stick to your boundaries. If you don't, then your boundaries are empty, and the person who hurts you will crawl under your skin again, and the process will just continue on. So you gotta be ready to stick to your boundaries. Boundaries can be simple. When you do this, I do this. When you raise your voice at me, I will leave the room. I'm going to get into more of how to set clear boundaries a little bit later on in the episode. But especially when you're dealing with someone who suffers from mental illness, you need to set very clear boundaries and stick to them. Have I honed this in enough? But that way, there is no question or surprise when you actually follow through on your boundaries. So let's say you're taking action on your boundary and you leave the room. There's no surprise there. You've already communicated that's what you're going to do. So there's no, oh my gosh, I cannot believe he or she is doing this. You already expressed what your boundaries are, so there's no surprise. To get a little bit personal with you, I've had to do this in my life with someone I love so much. I love this person dearly. There's no one I've ever met like this person, but this person violates my boundaries over and over again. And my anger after setting my boundaries has actually turned into grief because my loved one will not change, and I can only control my reactions and my response, not theirs. But since I have practiced compassion with them and put in place some boundaries, I can love this person better. Instead of just imploding and becoming angry, I feel like I can love this person better, even if it's from afar sometimes, even if I have to take breaks sometimes. I'm not leaving angry. I'm not leaving as upset. Again, I'm not saying that this is an easy task or choice, but it is an option for you to try. If you choose to try this, or just in that contemplation stage, like, I'm not sure, let me just give you some ways to set some nice, clear boundaries. So when setting boundaries, there's no need to debate or to over-explain. You can be firm, direct, and gracious. If and probably when the person becomes resistant, it can be easiest just to ask them to really listen to you and to repeat the boundary. A great tool to use when communicating something uncomfortable, and this can go for boundaries or beyond, is to first deliver it with tenderness but honesty. I repeat, first tenderness, then honesty. You need both. If you just give warm and fluffy, that tenderness, nothing will change. If you just give honesty, people get defensive and you kind of sound like a jerk. So you need both. Now, you could deliver honesty first, then your tenderness, or vice versa. You need to figure out what works for you. But when you have just one or the other, you either sound fluffy and nothing will change, or not nice at all, and the person will recoil and not be listening to anything you say because there's no tenderness there. There's no love. Here's another one. This happens with the person that I love. This person was really insecure about certain body parts, and this person is beautiful and lovely. A boundary that I had to set up was, I think you are beautiful and lovely, so could you please stop commenting on my appearance because I'm okay with the way I am. And if you do it again, I won't speak to you for an X amount of time. This is what I need to keep myself safe. You see, I am not over-explaining. I'm delivering tenderness. You look beautiful the way you are, but to please stop commenting on me, and this is what's going to happen. So there's no surprise there. These are some offerings or suggestions on how you could set a boundary. Firm, direct, honest, and grace. Know that it will be uncomfortable at first, but eventually it could feel freeing to have people know what you are okay with and not okay with. It's even freeing for you to say, this is what I'll stand for and this is what I won't. It's very black and white. It's not a lot of gray right there. And also your boundaries don't have to be forever. This isn't a life sentence of the boundary forever. Now it could be, but boundaries can ebb and flow and change. As long as you're upfront and you communicate that, I think that's a very fair way of keeping yourself safe. I have a similar podcast about how to coexist with someone who's really challenging, and that's episode 11 called Some People Suck, How to Move On. It doesn't so much go into the boundary making, but it goes into some other tactful ways that you can navigate this if the boundary thing seems too challenging or doesn't fit right for you. So I'm going to leave you with some questions so you can unveil your truth. I would like you to ask perhaps, what laws have you come up with in your life that may make you shift or violate your boundaries? A great way to start thinking about this is to also ask, do you have any relationships that leave you feeling hurt, sad, mad, or misunderstood? That question may lead you to the first, which is what laws have you come up with in your life that may make you shift or violate your boundaries? Laws such as, it's a family member, so I just need to deal with it and not rock the boat. So the third one, what boundaries do you need to set in place to make you live in your truth and integrity and to keep you safe? Please try not to forget to express your boundaries with tenderness and honesty. And just a side note, boundaries are for you. So if people don't understand them or push back, this isn't a sign to stop because your boundaries aren't for them. It's to keep you in your truth. It may sound selfish in a bad way, but no one is going to advocate more for you than you. So again, that compassion starts with you, and then you can spread that compassion to other people by putting boundaries in place. If you want to learn more about the research on compassion, Brené Brown is a quick Google search and you can read all about it there. And again, episode 11, back in my archives in case you want to navigate how to deal with people who are challenging. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or my website or however you see fit. I am so excited to compose more for you, and we'll have another chat maybe in a week or two.